The newly announced 30% tariffs on the European Union and Mexico are set to take effect on August 1st. And when it comes to Canada, the message was crystal clear. We're only taking the best deal for Canada. No more compromises. That's not posturing, it's strategy. While Washington doubles down, Canada and Mexico just made their next move. They've signed a deal to bypass the US entirely. Yes, skip the United States. In a bold two-country agreement, Canada and Mexico unveiled a coordinated plan to go around American soil. And they've already started laying track. Headlines say it all. $120 billion rerouted. 30% tariffs incoming. 0 U.S. customs checkpoints. Overnight, former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum revealed the Northern Corridor, a new rail and port mega-network connecting the Pacific Ocean to the Gulf of Mexico. The goal? Bypass U.S. infrastructure entirely. The cost? America's control over North American trade. Reuters reports it's 9,200 kilometers of new freight arteries, rerouting steel coils, EV batteries, and soybeans valued at more than Detroit's entire 2024 auto payroll. Customs experts are warning. The U.S. stands to lose $4 billion in customs revenue before Trump's 30% tariffs even go live on August 1st. That means fewer parts for American automakers, more expensive lumber at Home Depot, and a hole in the federal budget the size of Nebraska's GDP. So the real question becomes, who's really driving North America now? The White House? Or two neighbors who just built a fast lane that skips Washington entirely? Stick with traveling vibes, because by the end of this report, you'll understand how a single shortcut is set to redraw every supply chain map on the continent, and maybe even decide whether your next car gets built in the US at all. Let's break down the numbers. Earlier this month, Trump pledged sweeping new tariffs on steel and auto parts, starting early August. Unlike sector-specific duties, these are broad and painful. But Canada and Mexico didn't respond with threats. They responded with concrete. They're building a 4,400-mile rail and port system, stretching from Prince Rupert in British Columbia to Mazatlan in Mexico. The price tag? $3.3 billion, privately funded. At the Pacific Edge, an 8 million container superport is rising. Mexico's side is in full construction mode. Now let's do the math. In the first 9 months of this fiscal year, U.S. steel tariffs brought in $2.5 billion. Sounds impressive, until you realize that's only 0.04% of total U.S. federal revenue. If just a fraction of that cross-border freight starts using the new corridor, that revenue disappears, while prices on everything downstream, cars, appliances, building materials, go up. Detroit's auto plants will have to wait longer for Canadian steel. Mexican battery plants can now ship directly to Vancouver showrooms. No more Michigan toll booths. Every diverted rail car adds cost for American buyers, and advantage for Canada and Mexico. The very price advantage that Trump hoped tariffs would erase? It just got bigger. Meanwhile, the backers of this project are calling it the Panama Canal on rails. And for good reason. A single day saved in transit plus tariff immunity can shave up to 7% off total costs for West Coast exporters. But for Washington, the loss is bigger than just revenue. It's leverage. The U.S. can't tax a train that never enters U.S. soil. Customs brokers have a term for it: regulatory seepage. Once a path exists, freight follows it. Factories follow freight. And pretty soon, policy has to chase infrastructure, not the other way around. And yes, factories are already planning ahead. A recent Auto Parts Association survey found 41% of U.S. suppliers are considering partial relocations to Canada or Mexico if the trade situation remains unstable through the end of the year. The Northern Corridor isn't just a bypass, it's a pressure valve. The higher the tariff, the faster the diversion, and the louder Midwestern voters are going to hear the hiss. And here's the kicker. The first locomotive on the corridor rolls before August 1st, before the tariff clock even starts ticking. That whistle? It'll echo from Prince Rupert all the way to Capitol Hill. Canada and Mexico didn't pull this off overnight. It's been in motion for years. Back in March 2020, Ottawa allocated 2.3 billion Canadian dollars to upgrade its Pacific trade gateways under the National Trade Corridors Fund. Prince Rupert got first priority: modernized docks, upgraded rail lines, and expanded grain terminals. 4 years later, the payoff is real. The port now moves 23 million tons of cargo annually, and that figure's climbing. Crews are pouring another $2.5 billion into upgrades this summer. The result? Double-stack trains that zip through Saskatchewan and beat Seattle-bound ships to Chicago by a full day. Mexico is moving fast too. Last December, President Sheinbaum approved a $1.6 billion investment to expand 6 major ports, including Veracruz, Altamira, and Manzanillo, and to finish the Sonora-Durango superhighway. The public explanation? Capacity? The private reality? Tariff immunity. At Manzanillo, construction is in full swing. Dredgers are deepening the harbor. Crews are building docks designed to handle 10 million containers a year, double last year's volume. And the work will be done before August 1st, just in time to beat U.S. tariffs. So what does this mean? Prince Rupert already moves the equivalent of 250,000 loaded rail cars per year. Manzanillo is on track to overtake Los Angeles in container traffic. The two are now joined by a clean, toll-free ribbon of asphalt and steel. No U.S. customs, no inspections, just uninterrupted flow. Every mile of track is now a fiscal pressure valve on Washington. The higher tariffs go, the more freight escapes. Border warehouses go dark, Midwestern mills wait longer. And Washington loses money before the tariffs even take effect. And remember, these trains run on fixed schedules, not political debates. The first double-stack train leaves Prince Rupert at 6:40 a.m. tomorrow. The U.S. Trade Representative says America's two-way goods trade with Canada hit $762.1 billion in 2024. With Mexico, that number's even higher, $839.9 billion. Together, that's 1/3 of every import dollar America spent last year. Now picture 10% of that volume rerouted to the Northern Corridor. That's $160 billion in cargo skipping Laredo, Buffalo, and other U.S. entry points. Gone, along with the customs declarations, merchandise fees, and harbor taxes that usually pad the U.S. Treasury. And those losses matter. According to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, the agency collected $92.3 billion in duties, taxes, and fees in fiscal 2023, second only to the IRS in total cash collection. Even losing a modest slice of steel, EV components, or grain freight means a major revenue hit. And that pain won't be abstract. Midwest automakers will start bidding higher for Canadian steel, as more of it heads south toward Mazatlan. Chemical plants on the Gulf Coast will pay extra to get Mexican inputs rerouted back through Houston, rather than enjoy the tariff-free ride to Vancouver. And at the consumer level, trim just 1% to 2% of volume from U.S. ports, and the National Retail Federation estimates a 4-cent price increase per dollar on imported goods. And again, this is before Trump's 30% surcharge even begins. The Northern Corridor isn't just an infrastructure upgrade. It's a full-scale transfer of leverage, from Washington to its two closest neighbors. Back in March, at a customs advisory meeting, the U.S. floated a new idea: a North American single customs window. What happened next? Canada and Mexico ran with it, without involving the U.S. They're building a blockchain-based customs network where origin certificates are verified between Ottawa and Mexico City, with no data ever touching U.S. servers. That means no processing fees for CBP, no delays, no tolls. Here's why that matters. CBP charges at least $32.71 per commercial entry. In 2024, the agency processed 38.4 million entries, totaling $1.26 billion in fees. But once those entries get filed through Canada-Mexico's blockchain ledger, CBP earns zero. And the speed? Game-changing. A UN study shows electronic customs systems can cut clearance time from 5 days to just 24 hours. On the corridor, that translates to 4 to 5 hours saved per shipment, enough to pull premium cargo away from Laredo and over to Prince Rupert or Mazatlan. And those are the routes that used to pay the highest tolls. Factories are already reacting. On April 14, 2025, GM paused its BrightDrop EV van line in Ingersoll, Ontario, sending 1,200 workers home and warning that 500 jobs may not return until after October. Take one factory offline, and it ripples. Every auto job supports 7 more, from welders to food truck drivers. The 83,860 North American auto manufacturing jobs support 27,420 supplier gigs and over 291,000 paychecks on Main Street. That's over 500,000 people affected by every shift change. Zoom out further, 10.1 million Americans, or 5% of all private sector jobs, depend on the auto industry. If even a portion of battery production leaves Michigan for Quebec, the bleeding accelerates. The unions see it coming. On May 14th, the Longshore Union called Trump's tariffs an economic war on working families after LA cargo plunged 30% in a single month. They fear once ships land at Prince Rupert or Mazatlan, they're never coming back. Auto unions feel the same. Cancelled production chips away at the entire supplier base that keeps Detroit alive. Staffers on Capitol Hill are already scribbling numbers on the backs of napkins. BrightDrop's pause may be one plant, but the multiplier effect could endanger 9,000 jobs across the US and Canada. Multiply that by hundreds of thousands of vehicles the corridor hopes to reroute, and the Midwest isn't dealing with campaign slogans anymore. It's facing a fiscal time bomb. So let's be clear. A $120 billion steel and auto artery has just detoured around Washington's toll booths. Mexico has joined Canada's northern corridor. That rail line? It's not a shortcut. It's a continental escape route. This isn't just a policy clash. It's a stress test for Trump's 30% tariff wall. If Washington stands firm, Detroit could be tightening bolts with empty hands while customs booths count fewer trucks. If the US blinks, offering a late-stage tariff relief or quota deal, the bleeding may slow. But the new rule is clear. Whoever builds the infrastructure sets the rules. So here's your cliffhanger. Does Washington back down? Or do Canada and Mexico wave the first freight train past the border guards and never look back? Drop your predictions in the comments, because tomorrow's headlines may start right here. This is Traveling Vibes. Subscribe now to stay ahead of the curve.